they can have their own treatment plants. If there are small industries, right, medium industries, they don't have that much resources to build a treatment plant. They need a system. They have to piggyback on some system which is existing. That is what you saw yesterday, common treatment plant like that. That is what we were telling, that the dischargers will discharge the wastewater to the city treatment plant if it is having, even the domestic treatment plant has a capability to take some load. And also many cities have their own industrial wastewater treatment plant where all the wastewater from the industry is collected and treated. We will see those things, both the examples in one of the tutorial, right? So you have seen the common effluent treatment plant where the small industries, they were collecting their wastewater, discharging it to the common treatment plant in an equalization tank, then taken care. It is possible because they are in the industrial area. Suppose the one industry is somewhere in the corner, what you will do? So there are certain issues. It is not that the regulator will implement the regulation anywhere, but at the same time you have to see the issues on the industry side also, right? So that is what this particular presentation highlights: small and medium industrial waste management issues. What are the issues? Issues of small medium industrial waste management: general discharge prohibition, interference and pass through. We talked about that. These, however small it is, whether it is a small industrial unit or a medium, they should make sure that what they discharge should not cause any interference or pass through, right? How they will discharge? Municipal system, a city town has a sewer system built all over the service area. So industry which is close to the sewer system, they can have their own pipeline and then discharge it to the sewer system. That is how it enters the city treatment plant, correct? So what you will do, if there is industries in the sewer system, then you have to give an authorization what kind of industry it is, how they are managing their wastewater, right? How you will regulate, whether it is in the service area, who will take care of that. So if they are constructing an industry where they don't have a place to discharge, then city also has a responsibility to educate them or make a provision to accept the wastewater. Of course, it is not there, if they are causing any issues of pass through or interference, they can deny. But if industry is coming to the term, it has got an advantage also, right? You should not be in a, you are also making the provision for industries to come to your place. They will generate a lot of revenue. They will give a lot of employment. The whole economy will change. So at the same time, both sides you will have to know. They also have an issues, and how that has to be dealt by the regulation or the cities. That is also an important aspect. So one thing is sure, but they should not cause any interference and pass through. Many industries are there. They want to work with regulations, cities, and make sure that they treat their wastewater well. There are many industries, but only they need a proper understanding between them and the public. There are three components. One is the regulation, another is the discharger, that is the industry, and third the public also. Public also you should involve. What is going on, what kind of industry is there, is it causing a problem? It is the responsibility of all. Then what happens? Small industry, they don't have any engineers. They don't have a full-fledged staff. So then they hire a consultant, make sure that the proper report is prepared, and where they will mention how they will take care of. Then it comes to the regulation and he will approve and he will say that under these conditions, these are the requirements, then you can discharge. So they also have an issues. So, but the responsibility of the regulator is to make sure that it will not cause pass-through interference. It is on the both sides, even on the regulator and discharger side. So pre-treatment basics. See what happens even if they are producing a very small quantity of wastewater, if it is a highly corrosive, if it is a very low pH, then you should make sure that it will not spoil the entire sewer system. The city has a right to protect its sewer system and also the treatment plant, right? So those are the important things in their discharge restriction and prohibition of dangerous waste regulation. You have seen, I have shown some pictures yesterday, what will be the consequences if they are not taking care of the wastewater which is toxic in nature, which is contaminated, which is causing an issues with a very sewer system, right? So if it is a corrosive, you should make sure that the wastewater what they discharge is between 5 to 10, which is safer for the concrete sewer lines or any kind of a sewer system. So what they will do, if they are producing a very low pH, then you will tell them you have to have an equalization tank, make sure that your pH is in this range, and then you can discharge. That is a pre-treatment system. If they are discharging with the high solids, then you will say you have to have a settling tank, then rest we will take care of that. You remove certain, if it is a highly, see city says if it is a 500 or 300 we can accept the wastewater, if it is a BOD we can accept, then if it is a extra then they have to remove, right? So that is how the system works. Then non-contact cooling water significant volumes, that is another issue today. Everybody wants air condition, right? Depends upon the climatic conditions, situations. But this produces a lot of wastewater, which is has a different water characteristics. You should make sure that that is discharged to the sewer system properly. If it is a big industry, you can and close to the treatment plants, they can have in a direct line, right? They can have in a direct line and then discharge at the headworks, right? So your sewer system also has a capacity. You cannot ask a big industry to discharge into the sewer system. Small industry, if it is not affecting the very system of the sewer system, then you can allow, right? Non-contact cooling water in significant volumes, and storm water and other direct inflows. Storm water, if somebody was asking the rain falling on the clarifier is different volume than the entire area. You might have seen the storm water, if it comes, what happens to the whole system is destroyed. If you don't have a proper storm water drainage, if you have not taken that into consideration in the design of the sewer system, all the sewage will just come everywhere, right? That will, waterborne diseases, 80% of the diseases are waterborne. So that is why it is important when you are planning, make sure that it is done for a 30 years plan and every component of the design factors are considered. Wastewater significantly affect the system hydraulic loading which do not require treatment. The hydraulic system is also important. Volume also can affect the very treatment system, right? Not only the loading, organic load, right? And fats, oil and grease control approach. I mentioned little bit about this yesterday. All the restaurants, all the gas and car washers, and there are certain industries which produces oil and grease. That has to be taken care. That is the very first treatment after your grit system. We'll come to the biological system later. So if the oil and grease is not removed at the very first stage, it reduces the overall efficiency of the system. So estimates fog causes just over 50% of all sanitary sewer overflow. What happens? It blocks the sewer system. If the sewer system is blocked, what happens? Overflow. Sewage is everywhere. Then it also affects the health of the people, right? That happens in the storm seasons, in the rainy seasons, if you don't have a proper drainage system in the place. So you can understand the consequences and the depth of the issues. This all needs a resource, and it may be in terms of funding and also the people. You need a big department to handle in each small places, right? So that is how the very intent that the people should, develop the system depending upon the town or cities and the volume of wastewater is produced in that particular place. So those things are important. Control approach: develop a fog control, ordinary requirement control, FSC, implement and enforce. Tiered approach implementation: focus one, new and renovated FSC and FSC areas of collection system experience, sewer overflow and more frequent maintenance, because you should have a control system in place, right? That is what I was explaining. Every restaurant, they must have an fog removal system, oil and grease. If you are just discharging it to sewer line, who will take care of that? The system would just block everything. That will cause the havoc in this treatment system. So those things are important. These are the issues with the small industries and also the some of the commercial entity. Also, I am talking the commercial entities must be brought under regulation. You should have a regulation to control this in a right manner so that the main treatment plant won't be affected, right? Municipalities which collect overflow data reported fog to be the cause as much as 70% of the sanitary sewer overflow. That is assessed. It causes a sanitary overflow. That is why those things are important. Fog control every city must have. You can understand how important this is. You have to have a regulation, but that is what I was telling. Even in a town of 5,000 people, they have this system in place. You can understand how much is the resource, how much resource is spent on this system. Everything is controlled. Even in a population of 5,000, they have this system in place. They have a wastewater treatment plant, they have a drinking water system. So you can imagine how that system, how the system is implemented and monitored properly. Similar system we should have if we want to have a good quality of water and if our rivers are protected, if the environment is safe, right? So prevent sanitary overflows. That is very important. That frequently occurs in the rainy seasons, where if you don't have any capacity to just overflow, reduce the amount of fog discharge to the sewer system and influent to the plant. Otherwise, what will happen? It will just end up randomly everywhere. If they are connected to the sewer system, that will that will spoil the entire treatment plant system. Okay? Reduce the maintenance cost of the fog in the collection system. If you taken care of this fog, your treatment plant system will work properly, right? It has a benefit. So that is why you have to see this overall holistic system for the wastewater management. Resources: reach out to the other jurisdiction. They have implemented a fog program. Fog control is specialty of the pre-treatment. Attend fog training. People should have a training. If you don't know that these things occur, then how we will do, right? How many these fog systems has been cities have implemented? You can imagine the damage to the public infrastructure. is it? You spend crores of resources, crores of money and manpower to handle the wastewater at the city treatment plant, and if this thing occurs and if it spoils the very efficiency of the treatment system, so what do you expect from this? It's a big failure. So that is why all these components are related and they should be brought under the system. And people who are involved, they need a continuous training. People who have done 30 years back, you understand how rapidly we are going and how the treatment system is going in almost all areas, right? How it can be monitored. We have an online system everywhere. Sitting at the one place, you can watch what is happening in the treatment plant system, right? So that is how precisely, if you maintain, then the water quality you can expect. So and tracking emerging contaminants, I will talk very little about this. Then as we go on, you will understand. We talked more about the metals, priority pollutants, PCB, PFAS. These are the next stage pollutants, right? What are the sources for this? You know about BOD, COD, and also yesterday we were talking about the COD, because what happens, biochemical oxygen demand, in the sense it is almost 80% of the waste, is organic and it is treatable. If it is COD, means industrial wastewater uh, discharge always has a higher COD, right? There are certain things which cannot be degraded. So that is why we put a COD into that and make sure how much is biodegradable, right? If you have a biological system, if it is not biodegradable, then it will cause a problem, right? Then you should have some pre-treatment system in place so that it has to be taken care of. Then the city can. You should understand the capacity of both the system, right? So PCB, PFAS, they are some next level pollutants. You might have heard more about the PFAS. At one stage, I will talk a little bit about the PFAS and PCB. We have an example about PCB also. In the tutorials, I will explain about that. But PFAS is also another big pollutant which is emerging. People are worried, but many people doesn't know, right? So this is the highly focused pollutant right now. We are developing, the country is developing the guidelines, document, type of methodology, how it has to be taken care of, what are the different methods to analyze that, all it is new, right? You should have some guidance to give it to the industry. Today, we cannot live without fibers, without plastics, right? Every carpet, everything, it is refurbished with these kind of chemicals everywhere. If they are adding it to our system, so what will happen? So we'll talk a little bit about that later. There are some emerging priority pollutants, in the sense sometimes you enforce some of the limits for a certain industry, but initially you will not be knowing. You want to have one sample or few samples depending upon the industry, where every metals, organic compounds, inorganic is analyzed. We do it on the chromatography, right? They are in a very small quantity. You want to understand what is there in the wastewater, whether anything is missing which is going to cause a problem. So based on that, you will revise. You will revise the authorization, and you will put the limits. You will make sure that it is taken care of. So that is the priority pollutant scheme. The sanitary sewer overflow system, I have already explained much about it. See, if you are not designed the sewer system properly, it will cause an issue. Capacity management, operation and maintenance is very important. So in our system, they have to, every city has to report how many times there is a sewage overflow. They have to notify. If it has occurred, how they have taken care of that. If it is occurring repeatedly, then you need an evaluation. Then you will see that the respective authorities will see the system what you have built is inadequate. So you have to enhance. So that kind of a decision. When you will make that decisions, if you have a numbers, right? If you have proper measurements, if you have a representative measurement, then only you can decide, right? That is what the intent of this. Then I have explained about this spill out of the manhole into the homes, businesses, priorities. Some examples are given. Just if it is overflow, some sewage is coming out of the manhole or from the sewer system, it is flooded everywhere. It will contaminate your drinking water and unhealthy atmosphere. Is it? People will fall sick. You might have seen many examples where the sewage is just left open. Nobody is taking care of that. So indirectly we are spending more money on the health system. I said 80% of the diseases are from the water itself, right? If you are not spending here, you will have to spend there. That is why it is very important to make the planning for this thing, right? Maintenance is important. We should not wait until repair. That is what we do. There is no maintenance. Once the system stops, then we will start thinking. That should not be the case, right? So, for example, if the car has a problem, you will do the maintenance, then it will work properly. Everything is like that. So, proper maintenance has to be there. So, release of raw sewage from the sanitary collection system prior to the treatment plant. That is possible. There are many industries. That is why I was focusing yesterday on the survey of the industry. You must know who is discharging how much. You have designed a system and there are some industries which you have not, they are not in the radar and they are discharging a lot of wastewater and it is causing this issue. That is why you have a system in place to understand who is discharging, which is the industry, where it is located, what they are doing, how they are taking care of the wastewater which is generated. You must know. That is why the authorities' first job is to find out who is doing that. If we don't know, somebody is doing and others are just suffering, all people are suffering, right? So that is possible. That is just one example I have put. Some numbers, is it? For yes, Environmental Protection Agency has this inadequate base flow capacities, power failure. They have why, how they are able to have this data? Because they have a system in place to track everything. That is what I was trying to tell yesterday. They have established a system where everything is tracked properly, right? So that is why they were able to come to this. You should know where the problem is, right? If you diagnose it properly, then you can give a treatment. If you don't know what is the problem, then the solution is far away, right? But in certain cases, you know very well, but you don't want to do anything, right? There are many examples, several examples. So we should have a proper system in place. Here also, we have system in some place and major places we don't have. So it has to be more focused and well planned system must be in the place to have all these numbers. Then you can make a determination and decision, right? Inadequate base flow and pipe breaks. See how they know this, how many pipes are broken in the city town. Do you have any data? No. That is why I was telling you the system is built such a way that How they come to know that the pipe has broken? Because they have to report immediately. They have a database system. In this state, in this town, how much is the pipe breakage occurred, when it is occurred, what they have taken. So they can track everything. So that is how, these things are important. Excessive infiltration or inflow, pipe blockage, because that is what I was telling you. Every city, town, if there is a blockage or overflow, that they must report. Correct. So that is how they get the data. So then they make a plan for that. So overall, there are some certain cities, see, they may not be having a funding, then they give a funding to them. It runs like an business, like a system. If a city doesn't have money, they give money, and people will collect the taxes, and then they help also. But that kind of a system must be in place, right? And see, how serious is this problem? 19,500 municipality sanitary sewer system in the US, more than half of the system have a peak flow, and reporting SSO event is incomplete. They want to know what is happening. They have a record of everything, who is doing. That is why, see, somebody is doing and others are suffering. How it is. So these numbers help you in the planning, right? Protect the public health. That's what I mentioned. If the severe breakage is there, children and young people can resist if we have a good immunity. But what about the children? What about the aged people? They have a less immune system. Immune system is less for the children and old people. So they will be the sufferers. That is why, if you build many medical institutes, if you are not taking care of the basic things, that will go on adding, right? So that is why these things are important. Prevent the public and private property damage. You might have seen during the flooding and all what happens, right? And prevent resource damage, surface water, fish beds, groundwater is also affected. That is another issue. A little portion we will deal with the groundwater, how it is affected and how it is important, right? These pollutants, groundwater contamination also there. I have added little tutorial on that. So if the contaminant percolates, joins the underground water, people drink the bore waters, well waters, they are affected. So there is no escape. If you are doing something here, it will reflect, right? Why are SSOs prohibited? Lost recreation value for waterways, lost tourism and sports fishing dollars. They also calculate how much it is affected. If it is a contaminant water, people will never go there. It will affect. See, you should have the understanding how it is affected, right? So this is how it is possible. Natural resource and is some kind of an data you must have to plan that. So where is the problem, you should be able to diagnose. This is for recreation and tourism purpose, sports purpose. But there are the SSOs will create a health issues which are more severe. We are focusing on that. So there is a next step ahead, what will also have an adverse effect on this kind of activities. Right? There are much benefits. You can say you should have a framework for prioritizing repair and rehabilitation effort, improved recreational opportunities, reduce risk of public exposure to untreated sewage, reduce long-term rehabilitation cost, improved collection system performance. So if you prevent that, there are multi benefits out of that. So that is what these issues. Cost of SSO control, rehabilitation needs, value of existing infrastructure, replace of existing infrastructure. So that is what I mentioned. You should have, once you have a data, then you can understand if it is occurring number of times, then they can say they have to revise. It is also possible on not only on industry side. Industry sides, they pay a lot of money to the city also. Then it is your responsible to provide a proper infrastructure also. Then you have to revise your entire the city's sewer system, right? So that is what mentioned here. Personal hours required to implement these kind of satisfy these kind of requirement. So it needs lot of resources. How much resources we have, how many departments we have, how many people are there, what they are doing, is it sufficient? The infrastructure what we have to deal with the wastewater produced, is it sufficient? First we will have to assess that. So they have that kind of an assessment. That is why they have gone far away to assess the minute things, how we can implement. So we do that. Any cities, I said I work with the many cities, they report any sewer line. We'll say what happened, how it happened, what is the problem, is it occurring, how many times it is occurring in the year, right? Then you can ask for an evaluation, whether you're, I mentioned about they have to hire a consultant, a professional engineer, make sure that evaluation is done properly. Then you need a report, then you can take a determination, you can make a determination, right? Here, once they know, then they can target how many cities the sewage treatment plants are prone to this kind of activities. Whether then is there any issue with their funding, or whether they have a lack of resources, whether it is an inadequate infrastructure. Accordingly, government also comes step forward to help them. But it is ultimately they have to pay back, right? That one should have to pay for the wastewater produced. How you pay the some money for drinking waters, right? Similarly, you have to pay a lot of money for taking care of this wastewater also, right? Capacity management, operation and maintenance programs. So under this Clean Water Act, they mention how they should take care of all the components related to the sewage system, right? So SSOs are an indication of violation of the proper operation and maintenance caused in the permits or the authorization given. See, if it is we are violating frequently, then it is an indication that the infrastructure is inadequate, because you have designed a system for 100,000 people. If the population goes to 300,000, you can't keep the same infrastructure. It is possible sudden a group of industries come into the place, sudden increase in the population. When there is a sudden increase in the population, all requirements are also increased. In that case, you cannot keep the same system to take that much increased load, right? So how you do these programs are incorporated into the city? Better management, operate, maintenance, collection system. You should have a good collection system. Should have a manual. Designing a sewer system is not that easy, because the terrain also plays an important role. The volume also plays an important role. So you should have a proper system to collect the wastewater, right? Then only you can take that the wastewater produced from the residential and commercial entities to the treatment plants. right? So that is why you should have a better management operating system and a collection system. Investigate the capacity constraint area of the collection system and proactively prevent SSO. See how much importance is given for that, which will cause a severe issues in all direction. That is why this is one of the requirement and very actively dealt with this kind of SSO events. Then overflow response, contingency plan, grease control program. See, overflow response in the sense if overflow occurs, what you will do? What are your actions? There should be some action in place. So that is why you have a system in place. If this kind of incident occurs, then how these incidents can be dealt? You have a preparedness. So that is what also that plan also must be in the place. I was talking about the grease control program. This is one of the major cause also. If people are just discharging without doing anything, that will cause a sewer overflow, right? And sewer system assessment rehabilitation program, capacity certification program. Sewer system assessment, yeah, that is what I was telling you. You have to do evaluation whether the system is sufficient or inadequate, right? Then common programs, pump station, inspection, operation, maintenance, information management system, sewer mapping program, all must be in place. If we have a proper collection system, then only it will reach the treatment plant. So you must understand what are the different. I'm first talking about the sewer system you have in place, then the treatment. Then once it reaches to the treatment plant, then you can treat. If you don't have a system in place to collect the wastewater, right, then how we will treat the wastewater? First job is to design a sewer system in place for city towns or any industrial unit. Then you can go for a treatment. So that is why you need a pumping station inspection. Pumping station, why you do? If it is a different level, one sewer line comes here, one is at this level, you have to pump at certain possible, because you want to have a gravity flow always. You cannot keep pumping in a inevitable situations. You can have a pumping station, right? You have certain states, you have seen the cities, towns are built on the slope. So in certain cases, you can't expect the gravity flow. That is why the pumping stations are required. Then every proper program should contain the following events. Must be POTW specific, wastewater treatment plant specific, must have a purpose, must have a defined goal, and must in writing. See, you must put all this in writing and open what you are doing. Everybody should know what is going on, right? It is not that some corner, because public is very active. Public is very active. We just not bother of some of the things which are happening around, right? But the public is very aware of that. Must be implemented by trained personnel. The person who is implementing, he must be trained. He must know what he is doing, whether he is qualified, he is the right person, he has a proper training. That all has to be seen, right? And they must have a performance measurement and must be subjected to periodic evaluation, right? You have to evaluate every time, right? Otherwise, how you will understand the system? So I think this is the lecture 3. What we studied in this, I want to just summarize. In the first portion, lecture 1 and 2, what is studied? Studied about the regulatory system in place, right? how you manage. There must be someone to oversee, right, when a system is built. So that you saw. What are the different components? Okay. Okay. That's you have a 15 minutes break at 11:40. Okay. Because I have told them to send a chit like that. Sometimes I may not stop. I may continue. So that's why I have told them you have to send me a chit. I should understand when the break is. I don't want you should be deprived of food or tea, anything. So, right? We studied in the lecture 1 and 2 what are the various systems, how they operate, how they built the system, how they brought all the components of the wastewater treatment and into a common platform to have a safe environment to achieve water quality. Right? You have seen the very administration system. Right? There is no loopholes in that. Everything is tracked, and you will understand what is going on. Everybody has a right. Every person has a right. In the lecture 3, what you studied? You studied how this wastewater is collected. You have a treatment plant. You have a lot of regulations, how they have to treat, how they can take care, where they will discharge, what they will discharge, what are the components, what are the limits, everything is there, right? And now in this, you studied the collection system. You have a collection efficient system to bring the wastewater produced at the service area. Is in the sense the city has a jurisdiction. If any industry or any residential, any commercial entity built in that service area, they should have a sewage system, right? So if you have an efficient sewage system, then you can bring all the wastewater to a certain point, then you treat, right? And you also saw the consequences of the importance of the sewer system, how efficient it must be, how you will evaluate, what are the different components, how you will have a maintenance system, how what you need, you need a large quantity number of trained people to manage the system, right? Yeah, then you can avoid the overspill and the different causes of health issues to the people in case of spillage and the overflow. You should have a system in place to take care of a storm water, and all that is covered in the this lecture, right? So do you have any question?
For the data collection for the power failures, pipe breaks.
Yes.
I mean, man working can be sometime minimized by using some advanced technologies for
Right.
best water management.
Right. There is a system in place.
Yes, sir.
In many places, we have an online system to monitor the entire sewage system, how it is collected, from where it is collected, how your treatment plant is working. You can see online. And now it is connected to the AI. Many companies, many cities have come forward to put AI. AI is a very good tool. So uh, it does a very good job. It can reduce a number of people.
Yes, sir.
It can reduce number of people working into a small for that will also come here, right?
Yes.
But we need a lot of employment also, right?
Yes, sir.
So, but this is the very good tool. Many people have bringing that into the system so that they can reduce the manpower. Okay? It is already in place.
Thank you, sir.
Uh, just open the lecture number 4, right?